The High of Leon didn't just stay on pitch. France 98 had officially turned into a multi-million-dollar scouting showroom for Jamaican football talent. For the local base players who had just, spent their careers in domestic leagues, life was about to alter, overnight. So, at just 19 years old, Ricardo Baby Gardner had completely mesmerized European scouts with his maturity on the world stage, and English clubs, Baltimore Wanderers, didn't even hesitate. They stepped forward and decided to pay his local Jamaican club Harbour View a £1 million transfer fee to get the teenager's signature. Gardner wasn't just moving to England, he was setting up legacy for future Jamaican players. He would go on to spend 14 seasons at Bolton, becoming an absolute icon of English football. Now, while Gardner, he made headlines, other, English local based players decided to stay put in their own respective teams. For example, Frank Sinclair, he stayed with Chelsea, Robert Earl decided to stay with Wimbledon, and Dale Burton decided to stay with Derby County to, continue to make a successful career in the English Premier League. But back in the Caribbean, Gardner's million pound breakthrough had triggered unprecedented local boom for locals. European clubs were suddenly desperate to find the next raw Jamaican gem. And honestly, the single transfer just blew the door wide open. Suddenly, European scouts realized that Jamaica's domestic league was packed with raw elite talent. Take, for example, Theodore Whitmore and Andy Lowe. About a year or so down the line, both of them earned big money moves over to England, signing with Hull City and Port Vale respectively. It just proved that local players could go straight from the island and compete with the toughest professionals in Europe. Then, of course, I couldn't forget him. Probably the most skillful player in Jamaican football history, Walter Blacka Boyd. If you watched this explosive cameo off the bench in France, you knew he was special. By 1999, he sealed a massive, highly publicized move to Swansea City. The fans over in Wales absolutely fell in love with his style. He became an instant cult hero and just added to the whole magic surrounding the Reggae Boys back then. At this point, Jamaican football was flying high. The players were in global demand, the money was finally rolling into the federation, and it felt like the future was limitlessly bright. But here is the catch. While all these heroes were packing their bags and heading to Europe, a silent crisis was brewing right back home in Kingston. The foundation was already starting to crack. But you know what? Hold on to that thought for a second. Just put a pin in that statement, because before everything started to unravel, the Reggae Boys had some immediate business to take care of right in their own backyard. Literally, less than a month after their final Buster Blue in France, it was time to transition straight into the matches after the World Cup. Jamaica had to clear their schedule and pack their bags and head straight to the 1998 Caribbean Cup. Now, as we look into the Group B table right here, I have to be completely honest with you guys. Trying to track down high quality footage or even basic photographs of the regular boys of this year on specific tournaments was an absolute nightmare. I spent hours digging through deep digital archives, and almost everything from this era is either locked away in a private local TV vault or just completely lost in time. Because of that, the visuals for this section are going to be a little bit different to give you raw physical feel for intensity of the games. I'm going to show you whatever tournament clips I could actually find, even if they aren't exactly from Jamaican matches. For example, check out this rare clip I was able to find of Stair John banging a goal for Trinidad and Tobago against Martinique during this exact tournament. It's not Jamaica, but it gives you the general idea of this video. As for the stats, the official match sheets are all verified by the historians over at RSSF. But to be honest, I'm not really a big fan of their old school layout. They can be very ugly to look at. So I'm gonna be using the Wikipedia layouts. They're all verified by the RSSF. That's where the Wikipedia layouts are used. So if anyone's questioning why I'm using the Wikipedia screenshots, because that's where the information and the sources all come from. Now, of course, if you do want to, look at it yourself, I will put a link to all the RSSF data for yourself. It will show you all the links to the Caribbean Cup tournaments for you guys to look at for yourself. So now, as you can see from the standings, Jamaica absolutely flew through the group stage on home soil. 3 games played, 3 straight wins, and a perfect 9 points. They hammered in 9 goals while only letting in three, finishing comfortably at the top of the table to punch their ticket straight to the semifinals. Haiti also managed to grab second place spot, while Cayman Islands and the Netherlands Antilles, which I'm pretty sure was later Curacao, Aruba, and Bonaire, ABC Islands, were officially sent packing. Now let's look into the actual games that built the perfect table. For the first match, Jamaica kicks off their campaign on July 22nd, playing at the National Stadium in Kingston against Cayman Islands. Now, if you look at the official FIFA rankings, that just dropped 1 week before this tournament, this match looked like a massive mismatch on paper. Jamaica was sitting high at number 29 in the world, fresh off the World Cup, while Cayman Islands was all the way down at number 152. You're talking about a 120 places gap. And while a 4-0 scoreline makes it look like an absolute blowout, the actual flow of this match was a lot tighter for most of the night. Things actually started out exactly according to plan. Just 17 minutes in, our powerhouse defender, Ian Goodison, finds the back of the net to put Jamaica up 1-0. At that point, the fans in Kingston, they're expecting a complete blowout against the much lower ranked Cayman Islands. But instead, the match completely grinds to a halt. Now, because actual video footage of the game is hard to come by, we have to look at official timeline to make an educated interpretation of what happened. Based on the world rankings in 1998, Jamaica should have ran away with it, but Cayman Islands managed to adapt, dig deep, and completely frustrate the Reggae Boys. They somehow managed to keep the game at a razor thin 1-0 scoreline for a staggering 53 minutes. As the clock ticked well past the hour mark, you can bet the tension was building at the National Stadium. The breakthrough finally came in the 70th minute from none other than the million-pound man himself, Ricardo Baby Gardner, who stepped up to slot home a crucial second goal and break the gridlock. Once the second goal went in, the Cayman Islands resistance just completely crumbled, and that's when the hero of the France 98 decided to take over the show. Theodore Tupper Whitmore, the same man who scored those two iconic goals against Jamaica to give us our first ever World Cup win, stepped up and bagged a rapid double. He scores in the 76th minute and then strikes again in the 86th to officially lock in the 4-0 victory. But here is a crazy piece of trivia that a lot of football fans completely forget. These two strikes right there against the Cayman Islands would actually end up being the final goals Theodore Whitmore would ever score in a Jamaica shirt for the entirety of 1998. The man who was on top of the world in France just a month prior would go completely cold on the international stage for the rest of the calendar year. 2 days later, on July 24th, Jamaica walked back onto the pitch at the National Stadium for match day 2. This time, it was against the Netherlands Antilles. And just like the opening match, looking at the FIFA World Rankings would make this look like a routine night for the Reggae Boys. Jamaica was still riding high at number 29 in the world, while the Netherlands Antilles were practically glued near the bottom of the ladder at number 150. But on the pitch, this game turned into an absolute 5-goal thriller. The game barely started, and literally 1 minute into the game, striker Anandi Lowe finds the back of the net to put Jamaica up 1-0. Now, this wasn't just a lightning fast start, it was a massive moment for the big man. The strike marked Anandi Lowe's first international goal for Jamaica in over 2 years. He had spent a long time battling his way back into the team setup, and that 1 minute's opener was pure validation. But the Netherlands Antilles didn't fold easily. Though in the 34th minute, they hit back with when their goal scorer Zena slotted one home to shock the Kingston crowd and tied the game 1-1. But just 6 minutes later, in the 40th minute, Jamaica's powerhouse defender Ian Goodison steps up again. He buries a crucial shot to score in the back-to-back group stage games, sending the Reggae Boys into the halftime break with a 2-1 scoreline. The second half was a complete gridlock, but as the clock ticked down, Walter Boyd decided to seal the deal. In the 88th minute, Boyd breaks through to score a dramatic third goal for Jamaica, making his very first goal of the tournament to put the game out of reach at 3-1. The Antilles did manage to grab a late consolation goal in the 90th minute, courtesy of Martin, making the final scoreboard 3-2. It was far tighter than anyone expected against a team ranked 150th in the world, but it didn't matter. With 2 wins out of two, Reggae Boys had officially locked up a spot in the knockout rounds. With the knockout stage already secured, Jamaica walked out of their final group match against Haiti to determine who would take the top seed. Now, if you look at the world rankings at the time, Haiti was sitting at around 112 in the world, meaning they were technically the toughest opponent Jamaica had faced at this stage. But once again, the Reggae Boys handled business on home soil, walking away with a tight 2-1 victory. The main storyline of this match was defender Eagleson. He had scored in three straight group stage matches. The second goal for Jamaica came from midfielder O'Neal McDonald, who stepped up to double the lead. Haiti did manage to push back with a goal from Wilfred Monteas, but Jamaica's defense held firm. With that 2-1 win officially in the bag, Jamaica closed out the opening stage with a flawless 3-0 record. They officially clinched the absolute top spot in Group B of the Caribbean Cup, sending a massive statement to the rest of the region that the World Cup heroes were ready to lift some silverwares this time around. On July 29th, Jamaica stepped onto the pitch for the high-stakes semifinals matchup. This time, they faced Antigua and Barbuda, who were sitting way down at number 144 in the FIFA rankings. On paper, the World Cup heroes should have rolled over them, but instead, this match turned into an absolute defensive nightmare. Antigua dug deep and completely frustrated the Reggae Boys for a full 90 minutes, dragging a scoreless 0-0 tie deep into extra time. The breakthrough finally came in the 110th minute. Striker Anadilo rose to the occasion, hammering home a dramatic golden goal to break Antigua's heart and seal a razor-thin 1-0 win. It wasn't pretty, and it pushed the local base squad to absolute limits, but it got the job done. The Reggae Boys were officially heading to the Caribbean Cup final. The grand finale took place on July 31st against our biggest regional rivals, Trinidad and Tobago. Now, Trinidad was no pushover. They were sitting at number 59 in the world rankings, making this a true heavyweight clash between two top dogs in Caribbean football. But Jamaica struck early, minutes into the Caribbean Cup final. Just 6 minutes in, O'Neal McDonald scored to put Jamaica ahead to make the score 1-0. Then, in the 34th minute, defender Dean Sewell doubles the lead, sending the home crowd into absolute hysterics. Trinidad did fight back early into the second half, with their star striker Stern John pulling a goal back in the 48th minute. But the Jamaican local base players locked things down defensively for the remaining 40 minutes, and the final whistle blew at 2-1, making Jamaica officially the 1998 Caribbean Cup champions, officially securing their second title in front of the home fans. After lifting the Caribbean Cup trophy at the end of July, the Reggae Boys essentially went into a massive period of hibernation. The final match against Trinidad and Tobago would actually end up being the last game Jamaica played for the entirety of 1998. The Federation completely let the momentum of the World Cup freeze over, and it would take a staggering 7 months, all the way until February of 1999, before the team finally got back onto the pitch for another international fixture. To kickstart the new year, the JFF scheduled two back-to-back friendly matches against our Central American rivals, Costa Rica. It was set up to be a home and away doubleheader to get the squad back into rhythm, but nobody knew how vastly different the two games would turn out on the pitch. Now you're probably looking at the video and you're wondering, how did Jamaica drop from 27th to 39th ranked in a matter of months? Well, it was because back in the late 1990s, the old FIFA ranking system heavily punished teams for being inactive. And after the Caribbean Cup win, the Reggae Boys essentially went to the hibernation for the rest of '98, while teams in Europe and South America were completely playing high-stake qualifiers and racking up points. Jamaica's schedule was completely blank, and because of this total lack of friendlies, the system passively docked them points, and they just slowly watched themselves get bypassed on the global ladder. By the time the Federation finally woke up and realized the momentum of the World Cup had frozen, it was 1999. The main focus is mainly going to be about the 9-0 scoreline. So, let me tell you a little bit of the story. I remember seeing the scoreline a few years ago, and I always remember thinking to myself, this scoreline had to be a scoreline that happened in the 1980s or in the 1990s or the early 1990s. But then, when I looked through it, I later ended up realizing this scoreline happened during 1999. And then I realized, wasn't this a match that happened many, many months after a World Cup? It got me thinking, how did Jamaica lose 9-0 to Costa Rica, right? I'm not thinking to us like Costa Rica is some bad team, but I obviously wondered, well, how did Jamaica lose 9-0 to Costa Rica? So I spent months, honestly years, trying to track down any piece of video footage or news article on this game, and it was like it didn't exist. Eventually, I decided, to use some AI to try and track down this, and I was able to find this archive from the Cayman Compass that had actually reported on this game. And the absolutely first thing I looked at was the lineup because I needed to see who actually played in the match, and out of the entire squad, who were the World Cup players. And from the squad, that the World Cup players filled with Stephen Malcolm, Theodore Whitmore, Walter Boyd, and Ian Goodison. My immediate thought was, of course, where are all the English-based players? Did they just not care about the friendly? Did they just not see Costa Rica as important? But then I decided, do some basic research, and I found out when these friendlies took place in August, the Premier League, the Championship, and the FA Cups were all in full swing over in Europe. So of course, the full strength World Cup squad wasn't available, and those guys literally couldn't leave their clubs. And remembered that stars like Whitmore, Boyd, and Goodison hadn't made their big money movie. Now, after explaining this, would I personally say this was a good enough excuse? Personally, I'm going to say absolutely not, because the thing was, as mentioned, 2 weeks prior, the exact same local base players played against Costa Rica and Kingston and fought out a perfectly respectable 1-1 draw. So I'm like, how on earth, after 2 weeks of preparation, do you fly to San Jose and lose 9-0, right? So while researching this collapse, I noticed that Jamaican substitute Everton Bunzi actually ended up getting a straight red card late in the match. But the thing was, by the time he got a red card, the score was already 7-0. So this game, honestly started to confuse me, and it leads to like one massive question that we have to ask: why do we never mention this specific matchup today? Given how recent it was and the fact that we were fresh off a World Cup, you would think this would have caused a massive generational panic, but instead the game has practically been buried, erased, and scrubbed from Jamaican football history. So again, why don't we ever mention this game? The reason is actually pretty obvious. Around the exact same time we played Costa Rica, our U17 team was trying to achieve qualification for the U17 World Cup. Pretty quickly, their run completely overshadowed this disaster and wiped it from everyone's memories, and the fan base completely forgot the bad stuff because they were completely filled with optimism for the future ballers. The senior team, was practically, dead and gone, but the youth team revolution was just getting started. And, this is exactly where we're going to end off the first part of the video. The next part of the video, we're going to dive into, our historic Jamaica U17 journey in 1999. So make sure, you subscribe and drop a comment to give me opinions on, what you think of this first part of the video. And also give me your thoughts on, the 9-0 game. I want to know if anybody who ends up coming across this video remembers anything about this 9-0 game. I can tell me, your own personal anecdote of how, Jamaican public reacted about the 9-0 match.